Welcome to our webinar, Digital Publishing HTML5 Publications with QuarkXPress 2018. What we will show today is a working example online of an HTML5 publication. We'll also learn how to quickly export a print layout as an HTML5 publication. We'll start a new one from scratch, so no need to convert if that's what you want to do. We'll see how you can add interactivity to HTML5 publications, so animations, videos, slideshows, this kind of stuff. And then, of course, how to export and host it online so that you can see your result. And in the end, we'll talk about some configuration options and where you find more information. Let's first have a look at a live example. We're going to take the 7 Oaks Sound and Vision example. So 7 Oaks I will show here on Safari on a Mac. Of course it will work in any browser, any modern browser, on any platform, Windows, Android, iOS and macOS of course, and of course on different browsers. First thing you saw is a loading icon, and now you can see a page and you see some animations coming in, so some elements appear, and if you look closely you see that the background image is slowly zooming in. All of this is organized in pages. So here is a typical table of content, and you can also see staged animations here, so objects appearing after a time. Of course, if I want to, I can just click on something and I'll go to that page, and again I have some animations, this zoom effect where the background image is slowly zooming in. And all of this stuff here, of course, is HTML5, though it kind of looks like a PDF or like a flipbook. Forget that I just said that. It's not a PDF, it's not Flash or anything. It's all HTML5, 100%. So the good thing is that, of course, your find feature will work. Screen readers can read that. And if you want, also search engines can index this. Down here I have a scrubber bar, so you can see that there is different pages where I can click on, and again here other categories of products come in that this company here is selling. And here do not seem to be, I don't see any animations or other effects, so it's more like a static page with a little button up here where it says click, and when I click on it I get something like a pop-up that appears. Of course, all of these things, how this HTML5 publication appears, how it looks like, can be configured, and that's something that we'll talk about at the end. Also, do you want the scrubber bar down here where you can see other pages, or do you want to hide that? What background color do you want? All this kind of stuff. So let's get to work and look at how HTML5 publications work. Let's first do the most amazing stuff, the quickest stuff. Take a print layout and just convert it to HTML5. So I'm going to show this here on this 4-page print layout. You can see I have 4 pages here. I have facing pages, so my second and third page are spread, and my 4th page is a single page again. So how do I get this out now into the web as HTML5? Well, it's really easy in QuarkXPress. So I'll just right-click my layout name up here. I'm going to say duplicate, and let's just call this HTML. The big thing, or the important thing to remember is, of course, this shouldn't be print. This has to be digital. Once I do that, QuarkXPress is going to give me an intelligent choice on how big the layout should be, and that's why I'm not applying adaptive scaling, because otherwise QuarkXPress would try to fit that in, which makes sense if the page sizes are different. But here I really want to keep this kind of print look, though it's going to be web. I'm going to say OK. And now if I look at my first page, let's go back to my first page of my print. Here's my print. It basically looks the same. And that's what I intended it to be, right? The new thing though is what I'm getting is down here, I'm getting a preview HTML5 publication button. I'm going to click that. What you can see now is QuarkXPress is generating an HTML5 page or an HTML5 publication locally. You can see the URL localhost, so there's no server involved or anything. This happened on your desktop. QuarkXPress created this temporary file so you can see how this looks like. And it actually looks like my print before. So I can either click here on the arrow, I can use the arrow keys if I want to. I also have the scrubber bar showing all of the pages that I have, and I can just jump to the next page. And of course, everything here is text, so screen readers can read that, I can search for that, I can get that indexed exactly like I want it to be. Well, one thing maybe looks different. Look at the thank you here. We're going to go back to QuarkXPress. What you can see here, that here in digital looks like we exported it, but in print it actually looked different. You know, it's print. We had all these swashes. Why did we have these swashes? Because it's an open type font with stylistic sets. And well, on digital, this isn't enabled. We don't have any open type functionality. Well, it's easy to fix. Let's just go to Preferences. Let's go to Digital Layout General. And I want open type support for digital. I say OK. And now you can see also in my digital, I get all these fancy swashes. So let's export it again. Let's have a look how this will look like now. Now I'm going to use just the cursor keys to jump to my fourth page. And now you can see this is actually also in your HTML5. So if you want, you can get all the open type functionality that you want, because nowadays modern browsers support that. And well, I have all the features that I need. I can adjust that so that it's exactly the same like print. So it's a bit longer here. You have a little bar down here where you can adjust how the scaling should be, or you just want the scaling to be as wide as your pages. There's different options that we can apply. Right now I'm going to fit that in again, and now you can see how this looks like. Okay, so this is how I converted a print layout to a digital HTML5 publication. There's several things I still want to do. First, I want to have some interactivity, some slideshows, some animations that move in. And I also want to show you how to create such a digital publication from scratch. Let's first do that. So how do I create a new HTML5 publication by scratch? Well, it's as easy as creating print. I'll just go to File, New, Project. And instead of taking print here, I'll take digital. I have some pre-canned sizes here. I can, of course, create my own ones, for example, for a browser. For now, I'm just going to take my iPad, Android tablet, landscape. It's OK. And let's just create a picture box. This is as large as my background. I'll go to my Finder, and I'll take the Hamburg subway. I'll make this a bit larger. Resolution doesn't really matter because it's going to be my background image. Let's go to Image Editing. And well, let's first desaturate that. It's black and white. And then maybe Gaussian blur this. Nah, no, don't like it. What about unsharp masking? Let's take this. Oh yeah, this is nice. It's a bit drama into my background, okay? And text box. Let's take this text box here, and I'll write in Hamburg. You can hardly see it because it's small. 60. Make that white maybe. I'll center that, and I'll also center that in my text box, and let's center the text box on the page like this. Okay, looks okay. All white background with some transparency like this, maybe a bit smaller. Okay, starts looking okay. And now all I need is a good font. Let's take Phosphate. There we go. 60 is maybe a bit too small. Let's take 80 like this, phosphate. I have that in inline as solid. No, I like inline better. So maybe this is going to be my first page of my digital publication. So you can see I didn't really do much or anything different than designing for print. I just have a different layout size, maybe resolution is easier. And all I need to do is I just click on this preview button to see how this looks like. It's just one page, but you can see how this works. Of course, this is still a font. This is an HTML5 publication. And when I want to add pages, all I do is now I add pages like I would in print, right? So take my master pages or take a blank page and start designing stuff. We'll add some interactions or some slideshows, animations, whatever, in a second. But before we do that, I want to show you something. So I've designed my landscape iPad layout. Not very nice, quick job. But what if somebody looks at this with an iPhone or with an Android phone? Typically, people don't hold that in landscape. They hold that in the portrait mode. And now I want to design something else because otherwise I'm getting this letterboxing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layout into the same project. Also digital, but here I'm going to use, let's go for a smaller one, an iPhone 5. So, okay. Oops, that wasn't good. Let's go to layout properties. I should have been portrait, so I don't want to have that. Let's delete that. Let's do that again. So I'm going to go new digital portrait like this. This is fine. Go to my Finder and let's have, we have a nice image from India here that I want to use. So let's just put this here, get the idea. This bigger, I want the box like this. Okay, so this is going to be my iPhone layout. And just that you see what this is, let's put iPhone is great in here. And I'll also use my phosphate in maybe 40 and in black. All right, so this is going to be my iPhone layout. So what I can do now is if I go down here to the preview mode, I'm not going to just preview the page or the layout. I'm going to preview my complete project, which is kind of strange, right? Because I'm getting two layouts into one browser. Okay, so here is my iPad layout because it fits the browser. Let's go and make the browser a bit smaller. It still fits, so it's fine. And now it's suddenly switched. Do you see? Let's just hide everything that's in the background. So what you can see here is this is my iPhone layout because otherwise it wouldn't fit, right? So the browser basically decides, it's called breakpoints, it decides for a breakpoint. Now I want to see my iPhone layout, and it's going to scale it. So if I make it larger, it's still going to be iPhone. You can see it's getting larger and larger. And once we fit our landscape iPad layout, then I'm going to see that. And that's how this works. There's a magic behind there that QuarkXPress puts into the HTML5. So whenever something fits, it's going to put in there. And you're not restricted to just two layouts. You can have 3, 4, 5. You can go for the big browser size, for the iPad size, for the phone size, make it larger and smaller, and QuarkXPress will set these breakpoints and then switch between the different layouts. So often people call that responsive to the device, and that's what QuarkXPress does here with HTML5 publications. Okay, so for now, I think this is enough. Let's go into something a bit more advanced. So let's add interactivity. For that, I'm going to go back to my first layout here, my Scratch layout, and I'll just put the Hamburg thing up here so that we see it better. And I want this to fly in from the right. Remember the Seven Oaks example? The headlines came in from the right. So how do I do that? How do I add animation, basically? Well, it's easy. I'll just go to my HTML5 palette in QuarkXPress, and here I have all the interactivity that's possible to add. And all I need to do is I click on the button animation, and then I get options. So I already created the animation, but I have to create the options or configure this animation. And I want this to fly in from the right. Right? You can see kind of a symbol how this works down here. I can say it's over 5 seconds, over 3 seconds. Let's just give this 4 seconds. And because I don't want to guess how this looks like, I'm going to click down here on the preview button, and I can see it flies in. Great. Well, how did Seven Oaks do that the animation didn't immediately appear? It kind of waited. Well, let's wait 2 seconds, then have this come in, and maybe do this a bit faster, 2 seconds here. And also, I don't want this to be linear. I want this to ease in and ease out. So how does that look like? Let's just preview that. Waits 2 seconds, comes in, speeds up, eases in. Right? It's that easy to create these kind of animations in QuarkXPress by just using this click interface. Well, another nice effect that we've seen in Seven Oaks is this pan and zoom effect. Well, they just did that with one image. How is that possible with QuarkXPress? Well, it's again easy to do. All they did is they used a slideshow and used this as a pan and zoom effect here. Well, I'm not going to do this in this layout. I'm going to switch to my other layout that I had earlier. That was my print example, remember? So on this first page, let's do an animation, but let's do a bit different animation. I want this text box here to appear. So I'm going to say animation. This is going to be a fade in, and I want to maybe wait 2 seconds, 2 seconds, and I want this to do this over 4 seconds. So when I do this, I have a look at it. You can see first page, I'm waiting, and it slowly comes in. Okay, so that looks nice, but what I want to do is I want to have this text box here to appear after this one. So this waits 2 seconds and then fades in over 4. So after 6 seconds, this one has to happen. So my delay here is 6 seconds, and maybe let's do this a bit quicker, over 2 seconds. So this one comes in, and then the next one should come in. So let's have a look how this looks like by just previewing this. I'll wait a bit. First one comes in, and once it's there, the second one comes in. Yeah, it's slow. I probably should make this a bit quicker, but I think you get the idea here, right? So what do we do on the second page? Let's do a slideshow on the second page. Maybe this is going to be a slideshow. So back to QuarkXPress, select this picture box here. Let's just get rid of the lady. We're going to use some other pictures here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose slideshow. And first thing I'll do is I'll add some slides from picture files. There is my pictures, and let's just have a look what pictures I have. I'm going to take this one, and this one. Multi-select them, say open, and now I can see I have all of them in here, and I can give them a different size so that they all fit my picture box, like that. Again, I'm going to configure here my slideshow, so after 2 seconds I want to show the next one. It can flip, it can fade, it can slide. Let's just try how flip looks like. Okay, again, to preview, it's really easy. Click on it, and let's have a look at it in the browser. So Let's go to the next page. There's my Hamburg subway. We have to wait 2 seconds and then flip to the next one. Don't like the flip. And also what I don't like is down here, the little buttons. They show my user that I can interact with it, right? So I can actually choose this myself, but that's not what I want to do. Let's go here. So let's first take away the indicators and not allow user interaction. And then let's go for a slide effect here. Let's have a look. What will this look like? Second page. And you can see first one, I think I gave it 5 seconds. So I have to wait a bit. Slides over. Yeah, that looks better. And wait for the last one. There we go. Okay, slightly better. Let's use the fade example. And, oh, actually I gave it 8 seconds. No, that's too long. So let's do 4 seconds and loop that. But what I still didn't like so much is, if I go in here again, I didn't like that these images are so static. So I just see an effect once when it moves, and then, you know, after 4 seconds, see the next one. But yeah, if I don't look quickly, they look so static in between. And the Seven Oaks example had this nice fade in, zoom, pan effect. How do I create that? It's really easy. So let's go to my first slide that I have here by just clicking on it. Let's say animate, pan, and zoom. And this is not a pre-canned effect. This is something that you can set yourself. So this is my start and this is my stop. So let's zoom into the subway, right? So start, stop. That's how I zoom in. For the fisherman, start, stop. Let's just use a different example. So I want my fisherman to, let's make this a bit larger. Fisherman starts here and moves over here. And then the river start is here and stop is, I'm going to zoom in all the way. Okay, so let's have a look how my slideshow will look like. Export this again. And yeah, you can see now this zooms in. So it looks interactive all of the time. So I like this much better. Let's go back to our layout. So there's more interactivity that you can add to a QuarkXPress layout. So I could just give it, add a video here and have this either embedded or being referenced, a URL or YouTube Vimeo. If I want to remove that interactivity, I just click on the little trash can there. And yeah, audio, I can add a picture zoom that we've seen in the Seven Oaks example, scroll zone where you have something scrolling, web view where you can maybe put an interactive form in or something that you added yourself, and so on. I'm not going to bore you by showing all of the interactivity here. That's something that we actually have a lot of examples and a good guide on that you can read yourself. The next thing I want to do is actually show you how do you deploy this? How do you bring this into the web? Because this is all locally right now. So back to my converted print layout. First thing I need to do is I need to get this onto my hard disk as an HTML5 publication. So for that I go to Export as HTML5 Publication. I'm going to just create a folder, new folder, let's call that Export, great. So in here I have some options that I can set. So what resolution do I want? Do I want to collect fonts? For fonts it's very important that you only use TrueType fonts or OpenType fonts, because the standard PostScript fonts, Type 1 fonts, they're not web enabled, so you will see font substitution. So make sure that you use TrueType or OpenType fonts. Do you want page stacks so that it kind of looks like some pages are underneath each other and other ones are beside each other? You probably wouldn't use that if you do a print replica into the web, so I'm not going to use that. Do you want an automatic table of content? Do you want a loading page? What color do you want? What custom image do you want to specify? So the QuarkXPress image that always loads, you can replace that. You can control the reader. Do you want to show the scrubber bar that showed at the bottom of the browser that you can see pages and thumbnails, and all this kind of stuff is being configurable here. You can enable Google Analytics to see what your readers are doing with it, and you can enable the social sharing buttons. I'm not going to do that here right now, so I'm just going to export this one HTML5 publication layout. Of course, if you have more, what you can do, so more layouts, you can also export all of them in here. So for that responsive example that I showed, I'm missing my images here. It doesn't really matter for me for this example. So I'm just going to export all of this. So I'm going to get 72 dpi preview in here. So let's go to Finder and have a look what we created. So there's my export folder. Let's get that into a tree view. And let's have a look what happened here. So what you can see is I got a folder with a lot of files. So there's my index.html5, index.html. That's typically the one that you would reference when you go to a browser. You see some JavaScript, you see the fonts, you see images. All of this kind of is a set that you shouldn't separate. So this folder needs to be intact. If I double click this, the problem is you won't see this. HTML5 publications are not static web pages. They have a JavaScript reader, basically web apps, so something interactive. And for that, you need this web player to be running in a web server. And when you export locally using the preview button, QuarkXPress starts a temporary web server, so that's where you can see that. So locally, you can see this as static web pages, but it doesn't really make much sense. You need to put that on a web server. And also, if your clients want to see that, it needs to be in a web server that's accessible from the outside, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense, right? So what do I need to do? I have an FTP tool. There's many FTP tools, some built into browsers, some that you buy, others shareware. So what I'm using here is CyberDuck, just one example that I like as an FTP tool. And in here, my CyberDuck, I logged into my web server. That's something I got from my web space provider. And they give me a folder that resembles my URL. So this is my server. And what I'm going to do is, into this folder that I got, I'll just drag my export folder. And then it's going to be uploaded to my web server. So there you see, basically, everything that was locally is now also on my web server, kind of in a folder structure. And the only thing I need to do is I need to know what this index.html resembles. So now I open a new browser window and I put this onto quarkforums.com, and the my server folder is actually a my server URL. And then I call this export. So now when I hit this, you can see there's my publication with the animation, the fade in animation that we actually created. I can go here and I can see my slideshow with that zoom effect and stuff like that. So it's all live now, what I created here. And maybe the URL convention is a bit confusing. So basically what happens is you rent web space, which you need so that it's accessible from the outside. And your provider gives you that web space, typically your URL and a root folder. And that root folder resembles your URL. In my example, it was my server, that root folder that I simulated, and subfolders are basically paths after the URL. So for example, if you have myurl.com and you put your export into that root folder that you got, which resembles the URL, and in there is a folder called issue1, then the URL is myurl/issue1. So bottom line, export an HTML5 publication out of QuarkXPress into a folder. That folder name is going to be your /something after URL when you copy that to the root folder of your web space. Do I have to configure much? Well, in previous versions of QuarkXPress, when we introduced HTML5 publications, yes, you had to configure more. Now in QuarkXPress 2018, when you go to export as HTML5 publications, or probably best is you create yourself an output style for HTML5 publications, you don't have to configure that much anymore. So your loading page you can configure here, the reader controls you can configure, analytics, social sharing. A lot of the stuff you can already configure in the user interface. Should you find that something still needs to be configured, then you need to edit so-called JSON files. So they're called JSON because the ending is JSON. So if I double click that, I can open that in any kind of text editor, and you can see it's a human readable format that basically lists configuration options and parameters. For example, do you want to have cookies enabled? If you don't want to have cookies, then you just type in false here, no more cookies. Or what should be the banner height? 250, you just put in there. Do you want analytics? You put in true. Well, that's something you could have configured also in the user interface, but if you want, you can just configure the JSON files here. What's the publication title? Do you want a scrubber film strip? Yes or no? Do you want social sharing and stuff like that? So it's actually quite easy to read, and then just save it and you're done. Now you can't really break stuff. And if something breaks, well, just export it again, because the master, of course, is your QuarkXPress file. If you're looking for options, what you can configure, then please head over to our website, quark.com, support, documentation, QuarkXPress. And here you will find all of the documentation that you need also for the digital publishing options that you can set in the JSON files. So what did we just see? We saw a working example, the Seven Oaks website online, how an HTML5 publication can look like with a lot of interaction, a lot of pages. We also saw how we can quickly export an existing print layout as HTML5 publication with just, 3 clicks, and then put it online. We also saw that you can easily start new HTML5 publications from scratch. You don't have to convert from print, but of course you can, or you can combine it. We added some interactivity, not all of the possibilities. That's something where you can read online in the documentation what is possible. And then at the end, we saw how to export locally and then host it on your web server. And of course, you have to understand how you configure URLs, which is quite easy. It's just a folder structure. And in the end, we looked a bit at the JSON files, how you can configure further, but you probably don't need that for your first tests. And that's the nice thing. QuarkXPress 2018 has a trial version, 7-day trial. It's functionally unrestricted, so everything that you've seen today you can try even if you don't own QuarkXPress 2018. And that concludes our webinar for today. I hope this was interesting and that you learned a lot. And If you still have questions, then please head over to our forums, forums.quark.com, or visit our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/QuarkXPress. Thank you and goodbye.